Hello and what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode here on Real Resilience with Matt LaStalia. It is January 20th and I'm super happy to be coming back and spending some more time with you guys. It has been a good long while. I believe this may be our first production in 2022. So, better late than never. Admittedly, I desired to start doing these again much more quickly when when the new year came around. The way that just to go into some quick things before we dive into the show, what we will be talking about today is kind of how another way to motivate action in our lives. And so I wanted to use a strategy that I have and combine it with actually a bit from Kevin Hart. And so it was kind of my idea, and what I've said here before many times is going to be combined with one of the hilarious stand-ups that Kevin Hart has done. And when I was re-watching it somewhat recently, it struck me in a way that seems like it fit really well with what my concept already was. And so I'm going to combine those things together to provide you with a new, fun, and exciting way to light a fire under you and to go seize the new day in this new year. And so, but before we dive into that directly, I did want to address the gap in coverage here. So there were a lot of big changes going, a lot of big moving pieces. So I started out the new year. We rang in Christmas, bringing my kids from their mom from South Carolina, bringing them over. And then we brought them over to my parents, and they got to spend time with their family. They got to spend time with their aunts and uncles. And we got to see some really close friends of mine, and it was a really great experience. It was a great way to bring in Christmas. I was very, very happy with how that went. And so we brought them back, got them back to their mom, and then Yasmin and I flew to Puerto Rico to go surprise her mom for her birthday, and to have me experience Puerto Rico for the first time, because I've never been before. And I'll tell you what, it was an incredible experience. Absolutely incredible. Great, amazing, kind people that drive like maniacs. But we did a lot of great stuff. We went hiking up this most ridiculous trail. It was completely washed out with from recent rain, and the mud was so deep, like you step into it in the middle of these paths, and it would go like up past your ankles. It was trying to suck your shoes off. It was crazy. But we saw and explored a couple of amazing beaches. We went to the bioluminescent bay, where you get into the water, and then when you move around in the water at nighttime, you can see all of these organisms light up around you. So it looks like, I don't know, you move your hands really quick through it, and it kind of looks like comets that are going through the sky. You raise your hands up out of the water, and like you can see these like lights, it's like stars like falling off of you. It's incredible, absolutely incredible. And I believe there are only 5 bioluminescent bays in the world. 3 of them are in Puerto Rico, and the other 2, I think they're in Vietnam, somewhere in that region. And I know that in Puerto Rico, which is probably much closer to some of you, a lot of you actually, now that I think about it, are listening from Indonesia and from the Philippines, and so Vietnam is probably a closer stop for you. I'm not sure what the status of the Vietnamese bioluminescent bays are in regards to whether you can actually get in the water or not. I know that only one of the 3 bays in Puerto Rico allows you to go in because it's big enough. They space people out enough where you're not going to go in there and do damage. The other ones are a little bit smaller, a little bit more sensitive to that kind of constant interference that we would provide as humans just going in the water, amongst other things. So there's only one there. We were able to go to it, and that was really flipping cool. So that was great. Got to spend time with the family and everything there. It was wonderful. We came back. I got super sick, and it wasn't COVID. I tested. So my dad and my mom got sick when we were there in Nebraska, and then I caught what they had. And so while we were there, we actually got them one of those over-the-counter COVID tests. Dad tested negative. We went home. We were getting ready to fly out, and I took a test like the day before we flew, the at-home ones, negative. And then recently I took another test, I don't know if you call them more legit. Probably, right? The ones that the nurses actually administer. I went to like the Walgreens when we came back, and just because I had actually had contact with somebody that was there, and I was still feeling symptomatic from being sick before, so I wasn't sure if it was, from contact from somebody that had it, or if it was just lingering effects. But I got the official test done, and I was negative again. So hey, go figure. I may get caught by that common cold, but COVID hasn't got me yet. Woo! Thank goodness. So, but yeah, so all of that to say, it's been a real hectic beginning of the year. We got back, and now I have concluded that over the next 6 months, I am throwing down full stop into real resilience, right? So here you're seeing the real resilience video casts, blog or vlog, whatever you want to call them, doesn't matter. Into this YouTube channel. There's the podcast that's associated with it, but I'm going to be posting stuff daily. Daily content for you guys. I will be doing that on a Facebook group that I will be starting. I have a Facebook page you can go check out, Matt LaStalia. If you're here, you can see that name. Just copy paste that name into Facebook. You'll find it. I think it should be Matt LaStalia Inc. will be the page. But I will be creating a group that will be a bit more interactive than the pages. Because I actually want to engage with y'all. So if you want to engage with me, be creating that group, and I will be providing the link for that. In the meantime, I will make sure that the link to the Facebook page is available here with the show, and I look forward to that. I'm going to create a Patreon page where I'm going to be creating content that's solely for those who want to come and contribute small amounts of funds. I won't be asking for very much because I understand that everyone's on a budget. And so I would, it will be something very simple, like you pay $1 a month and you will be able to get access to additional content that will not be available on just straight up YouTube. So that will be coming, and I will be providing links for that too. So let's see what else. The training programs are going to go into full swing. So that's on the agenda. So what I did today is, I am participating in the things that I teach, right? So I do what I preach. They say, that's one of the expressions, oh my gosh, I'm totally dropping it about preaching. But I'm doing as I say. Right? And so I think that's really important. If I'm not modeling the behavior by using the tools that I'm providing, then how good are the tools? And so I've always done this, but I'm making sure that it's kind of an explicit effort. And now that I think about it, I should probably be documenting this for you guys so you can see how I'm using the goal setting mechanism to ensure that I am hitting my targets. And so part of this is to create real tangible training programs for you guys. And doing so, I already have some that are built. I have other ones that are somewhat built and need more building. And so there's going to be a lot of work in that. And I think that it'll be cool. I think that'll be a cool, fun additional thing that I can do is kind of bring you guys along the ride for that goal setting kind of process. I think that'll be really good. So now, without further ado, let's get into the show, right? So I said that I had this concept that I've trained before and that I've spoken of before, and I had it mixed with this Kevin Hart bit, right? So one of the things that I like to do, just to go with what I have said here before as a way to kind of help to guide yourself, is so let's say that you are trying to answer a question for yourself. Like, you are trying to figure out what the best course of action is. You're trying to figure out if you should do something, if you should not do something, or what in particular you should do in this situation. I have found it immensely useful. And this is really simple and like, you would think that, like, oh, that's not going to work very well, or, that's kind of esoteric, or whatever the case may be. I'll tell you what, try it and tell me what you think before you knock it. Don't knock it till you try it, right? So what I have done is I have gotten into the habit of asking myself in those situations, what would the future self, my future self, who's living the life that I want to live, do in this situation? And it's really as simple as that, but you want to be as kind of specific with it as possible when it comes to your future self, because the future self living the life that you want to live is a little bit too general. So, and these questions, these situations that come up will be different. They will be on varying different aspects and approaches, and so and things that come up in life, different events. And it can be something as simple as going out to eat, right? So if you're going out to eat with some friends and you are at a restaurant and you're trying to figure out what to eat, then you can ask yourself, okay, the version of me that runs marathons, what would he or she, what would I do? That version of me, what would I choose for dinner tonight? If I was doing that, then I would probably be going for a run tomorrow. If I was going for a run tomorrow, I probably wouldn't get the chocolate cake for dessert. Maybe I would avoid super heavy carb loading. Maybe I would just try to stick to meat and vegetables. Maybe I would have a salad, in the beginning to curb a little bit of the appetite. Maybe. And so I use the marathon. I go back to running a lot just because I enjoy running, and so but you can tie this in with anything. What is the future me who's really fit and very healthy? What would that person do? Not just the future me that's living his best self, that's living his best life, but gearing that specifically towards the event at hand. Like, okay, well, I know that I want to live a long, healthy life. And so if there is a version of me out there that has the opportunity to live a long, healthy life, what would that person be doing? Like, what choices would that person make? And like I said, you can do that for anything. The dinner thing is a simple one. But you can break that down and mix that in 1,000 different ways. And it's actually very helpful because it makes it's like we already know the answer, right? And really, truly we do. But sometimes we just need a trigger to get us to that answer, right? Like it's there and we know it, but it goes back and it kind of resides in what I've referred to as like the gray space of our mind. And so this gray space, what I am referring to is that oftentimes we will find ourselves like knowing what we know. We know what we know, but we can't always explain what we know, or we can't always express it in a way that's very clear. That's why when we hear other people talk and we get like excited about the ideas that they're saying, it's like, oh my gosh, yes, it's like you're in my head, you're saying the words that I've said, but you've never said those words, but they resonate, and because you believe it and it's important to you, and like I said, it's in this gray space. It's in that spot where like it, and it's like when someone, this is a great example. So if you are dating somebody, and you guys are getting pretty serious, you've said that you love each other, and sometimes I've seen this in my dating life throughout my life that more than once I've been asked, what is it that you love about? I'll be like, I love you, and they'll be like, what is it that you love about me? And frequently I find myself kind of caught off guard by that. I'm like, What? What did you say? Okay, hold on. Let me ponder. And they're like, oh, you don't just know? And I'm like, no, I know. I feel it. It's there. But it's not like just one thing, or it's not a handful of things. It's this amalgamation, and I have to like work through this because it's sitting in this gray space where I know that it's true. I know that it's real, but I have the words for it. I can prove this to you. If you take something that you find very important, one of your core beliefs and values, maybe it's, family comes first, maybe work ethic is the most important. If you sat down and wrote 500 words, that's it. You just wrote down, you could type it up too. And you took one of those core values and you wrote 500 words about it. I bet you that by the end, like you would have come up with ideas that they were like, oh yeah, and then that, oh yeah, and then that. It's not these things that are like just on the tip of your tongue. It's like they're there in the back, but like writing it out and working your way through it helps you to process it and to get those things out. It's something that I actually highly recommend that people do for themselves in that regard. Anyway, because it does help to gain clarity on who you are and what you value and those things that matter to you. And it's very useful because it helps to better align yourself and to better align your actions with who you are. Because the more specific you are and more clear you are about your beliefs and about your values, then the better you're going to be able to kind of live those out. It's hard to live those things out when you don't have it clear. When it's just in that gray space, you're like, I know that work, like showing up to work on time and working hard is important. Like, okay, why? Like expand upon that. And when you do, then it's much easier to live out those values. And so, okay, so all you guys at home are like, okay, well, you talked about Kevin Hart. When does Kevin Hart come in? So I was expecting some sort of funniness. Well, I'm not a comedian. Like, I'm sorry, I don't have those skills worked out. But what Kevin Hart's bit was about, and this is no spoiler, because this is a very old special. If you haven't, and I don't even remember which one it is. So, but it's a Kevin Hart bit, and he talks about his uncle coming home from prison after 15 years, and he shows up to like his cousin's place where his uncle is at, and he's like, yo, Unc, it's been 15 years, been a long time. I've come up, I'm doing well. Let me take you out. Let's go to the club. Let's go see some ladies. I'll give you some drinks, and and then that goes into the bit about say it with your chest. Oh gosh, it's so good. I do it. No justice. Full acknowledged. No justice given. So how does that Kevin Hart bit really tie into what we're talking about? I was discussing, talk with your future self, to have a discussion with your future self. If your future self in 5 years from now, who's crushing it in business, was there in front of you, and you're getting ready to binge watch your 4th season of whatever show, what would they be saying to you? How does that tie in with this Kevin Hart bit? Well, the big thing for me was that the uncle was in prison for 15 years. And so there's actually two different strategies that are very similar that you can use in regards to this that will be very effective for you kind of lighting a fire under your butt so you can get moving and get going. So, number one is, let's say that you have a really good friend that, like your best friend, maybe it's your brother, maybe it's your dad or your mom, whoever's like really close and really important to you. Let's say that they go to prison for 15 years. It doesn't even have to be prison. Let's say that they go and travel they're gone for 15 years, and then they come back, and then they see you. Who are they going to see? Like, who are they going to meet? What will you have accomplished? What will you be working on? What kind of life will you be living in 15 years from now? And I think that is an extremely powerful way to kind of look at our lives. And I see, the thing is, I really like the prison one, and this is the other variation of it. Is basically just saying, tying it more closely into the strategy that I was just talking about, and saying that, what if a different version of you went to prison, right? So you have you that's alive now, moving forward on your path, and you have a you that, for whatever reason, gets rolled up and taken into prison for 15 years. What would you be able to show? How would you be able to show what that version of you that went to prison missed over 15 years? And not saying like, these are the advancements that society has made. What in your life will you be able to show as a result of your freedom for the last 15 years as opposed to the person who's been stuck in prison? The interesting thing is that there are numerous people that go to prison that end up reading a lot of books, getting educated, and getting out and finding a way and a path for them to gain a little bit of purpose inside of there. Oftentimes with us who are our freedom isn't challenged, we kind of take it for granted, and we get complacent. We're like, oh, okay, well, I'll get to the goals. I'll get to those things that I want to accomplish. I'll do it. I got time. I'm going to knock it out. I just, I have to do X, Y, and Z. I have to work at this job to pay the bills. I have to, and it's all very important and valid, but we get bogged down in a lot of the day-to-day nitty-gritty. And I think a lot of it has to do with lack of organization and lack of time. That's not lack of time management. And that's not something I'm going to dive into today. I just, thinking off the cuff, I think that is a big part of it, is that, we don't have time. I don't have time. That's a big common reason that I hear people express when it comes to them not pursuing their goals and not making their life better than it is. And so I want you to try to make that argument to yourself who went to prison for 15 years. Like, you did what? Are you still working in the same job? Like, in 15 years, do you have a plan within the 15 years to be working for a different company, to be starting your own business, to be promoted? And if those plans are in the gray space, we're like, yeah, I'm showing up to work and I'm working hard, and I'm sure that naturally I'll come across some promotions. Like, of course, if I work hard and show up, and naturally, of course, we all want to be promoted. But you don't have a clear plan as to what that is, and you don't have it written out, and you're setting yourself up for failure, man. I'll tell you what, like, there was a simple concept that I heard. It was when you're at work, be at work, and so when you're there, basically all that means is that a lot of people work now in cubicles at desk jobs, or now even at home, and they will find themselves distracted. They'll be on YouTube. They'll be playing games on their phone. They'll be socializing with other people, and they're just not working when they're at work. And that if you work while you're at work, then you will surpass, just naturally on its own, 75% of your peers, and you will be promoted above them more rapidly. But that's just to that next level. Once you get to that next level, you're with that 25% that kind of did that same thing. Or, there's a little mixture of people that were just kind of tenured up. They've been there long enough. They're moving up, but they're still playing games. So you can still go beyond them to the next level after that by working when you're at work. But all of that to say, and getting back to the main point, is that, time matters. Time is the most valuable and non-renewable resource that we have. There are plenty of people that have earned a crap ton of money and have squandered it. There are people that have done great, invested it, and lost their money. Whatever, invested in a business and it went down. It's just a million stories of people doing that. And then there's a million stories of people like that also making that money again, making more money in the future, and just kind of continuing on this path. And so money, as we see, it's like the most obvious object of value because it's what we use to, it is an item that carries not inherent, but, given, distributed value that we've agreed upon, and we use that to exchange for good. But I feel like it's much more rare that we consider that our time is what produces that money, right? Obviously, we know we get paid either per hour or we get paid per year on a salary basis, but it's like that part of it gets, in our own equations, gets left off because we're so busy trying to manage the use of that money effectively once we get it. And we got bills to pay, and we gotta get our kids into school, and we gotta pay for this, and we gotta pay for lessons, and we gotta pay for these repairs, and it's just this constant kind of onslaught. But we forget that we're looking, we spend so much time thinking about how we spend our money, and we have all these apps and all these resources and stuff, but we don't do the same thing for our time. Like we don't hire a time manager, we hire a financial manager, and when time and the investment of time is what brings you the money, and proper investment of your time can change your life and can bring in significant amounts of more money than you have right now. And that's really the only way to make more money than you're making now is to look at your time. You don't look at your money, not right now. You can do that later. You can make your money work for you, but not right now. Right now, you look at your time. And if you're trying to justify, the improper use of time to the version of yourself that gets out of prison in 15 years from now, I think you're going to have a hard time doing it. So anytime that you find yourself kind of in these unproductive modes where you're on your phone playing games, or you're watching YouTube, or you're binge watching shows on Netflix or wherever, think about that version of you who's in prison right now. And every day for the next 15 years, that dude or that chick is in prison, and they do not have the access to the resources that you have. And you might think that you don't have that many resources at your disposal, but I'll tell you what, I'm one of them. I'm here to help you. I'm more than happy to sit down on a one-on-one and discuss this with people, and to go and look at what it is that they're doing. That's another thing that I'm looking at doing into the future. Here in the very short, within the next 3 months, I'm looking to open myself up for one-on-one conversations, so I can help people manage their time. I think that's very important. Amongst other things, how to properly set goals in their lives, how to look at what they have and how they can make it more. I think it's an important thing. It's like I said, we hire financial managers, but we don't hire time managers. Like who's out there in the time management field? Not that many people. I don't even think such a field technically even exists. So it's something to consider. Taking a look at that and using these types of little mental tricks to light that fire. Right? If it takes you thinking about like, man, God, if I got out of prison in 15 years and I'm working in the same company doing the same thing, and I'm only making like whatever the bare minimum natural raises that the company gives every year, every 2 years, I would step on my own throat. And I'd be like, what have you done with your life? 15 years? And what have you accomplished? You're still in debt. You're still paying on your car. It's like, yeah, you've traded. You got this nice couple-year-old car, and you're paying on it, and you're in this same location that you don't really want to be in. Like, what would you like? I want you to live life in such a way that when you get out of prison, when that version of you gets out of prison, not you're not going to prison because we're making good choices here. When that version of you that gets out of prison comes out, you're boasting. You're saying, man, you done screwed up because while you were in prison, this is what I did. And was it easy? No. But you were in prison. That was hard. So all I'm doing is I'm putting my self into gear, and I'm not taking my time for granted. Quality time with family is important. I'm not saying to work 100% of the time at the expense of your family and quality of life. I think that exercise is extremely important. I think that mindfulness is extremely important. I think that sleep is extremely important. I think your relationships are extremely important. Even with managing all of those, when you manage your time properly, there are still enormous opportunities for you to take that step forward and to look at what it is that you want to do and look at the life that you want. And it first starts with clarity. If you can't start this journey without knowing where you want to go, right? It's like having that map. Like you can have a map. That's cool, man. You got a map. You see where stuff's at. You perhaps, hopefully, on that map, you can even see exactly where you are. You can see 1,000 different locations and places to go on that map. But if you don't know where you're going, if you don't have a destination in mind, it's going to be impossible for you to get there. You can't get to where you're going if you don't have a destination. There's nowhere for you to go. If you're just living your life, in the passenger seat and just letting the events of the world around you kind of drive you and push you into the next thing, then you can expect not a lot of incredible results, not a lot of incredible progress to be made in that time. Now, you can put yourself back into the driver's seat. And that's not to say that when you're in the driver's seat and you have a location that la-di-da, you're driving down in straight line, there you go. No, there's going to be twists, there's going to be turns, there's going to be construction, you're going to have to go, you're going to have snowstorms that are going to shut roads down. You might be on I-95 a couple of weeks ago and where it shut down. I don't know if you guys heard about that, those in the States. But for those not in the States, so I-95 is this major interstate highway that runs up and down the East Coast. And near Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, we got blasted with a snowstorm. And there were people that were stuck in their cars on the highway for 24 hours, like a full day. And so that stuff, while is not common, that kind of stuff happens. It happens, and it's not good. And I'll tell you what, if you are in the driver's seat, like, you're in a much better position than if you're not. You can have choices to make. I remember, actually, with this particular circumstance, I was like, what the hell would you actually do? Like, I would get out of the car and I'd leave. Like, it's just depending on how far away you live. I'd call someone like, hey, meet me up on one of these side roads if you can actually get there if the roads are open, and then pick me up, and you're going to bring me back once the traffic starts moving. Like, I can only imagine how many people did that. How many people stay in their car for 24 hours? Anyway, I digress. It's the main thing here is you want to be in control, in positive control, making conscious decisions about the things that you can. Now, there is so much more out in the world that you cannot control. There are fewer things than that you can influence, right? You can influence more than what you can control. But you need to, that's where you need to put your focus on. You need to put your focus and your time and your action and your commitment on things that you can control and things that you can influence. Outside of that, it's not worth your time. It's not worth your time. It's not worth your energy. It's not productive, And so you could sit there and you can watch political shows and they could talk about stuff that's happening in Russia and Ukraine, and they could be talking about all these different things. And at the end of the day, you have to look at what makes sense for you. Like, where should you be investing your time? Should you be investing your time listening into the national news on that level when you're working at a job for like $15 an hour, or $7 an hour? I would argue that that's not the best use of your time. If you're going to be digesting information from the outside, you should be doing it in ways that are from sources that are going to be helping you build skills, from sources that are going to provide you motivation, things that are going to help to teach you. There's so much free education out there. You've got to seize it. You got to jump on it. You got to look into those resources, and you've really got to, hold yourself accountable. And that's really the message from the method that I'm discussing today, is doing this and doing a check, doing this 15-year prison, check, is really an accountability thing. Like, that version of you that's going to prison for 15 years is your accountability buddy. Because when you get out, when that dude gets out, when that chick gets out, and they see you, and you haven't done squat with 15 years, and you can shrink that timeline, you can say in the next 5 years, and that way you can make some real clear goals. Like, you can make some real crystal clear goals when you kind of zone it down to 5. 15 was just what, was said in the comedy bit, so that's what I'm using. But if you use 5 years, you can really zone in and say, okay, this is, in 5 years, I want these things to exist in my life. And then what we say in the military is that we backwards plan from there, right? We do some reverse timeline planning, and we'll look at, okay, well, if I want to own my car outright, and I want to have no debt, and I want to be in shape, like let's be that version in 5 years. I want to work for a company that mirrors my morals, or I want to start my own company. Okay, sweet. Now we can break down kind of each one of those into smaller chunks that are going to take to get there, like kind of these sub goals, these tasks that are required, these objectives. That's probably best. You call them, set your target out there for 5 years. You got your objectives in order to hit those targets, and then you have these tasks that kind of hit that the shorter frame. Like, okay, what do I need to do? I mean, you break this all the way down from 5 years to a year at a time, to quarters, to weeks, and I think that's probably the best method. I will go into that in great detail, I am sure. but yeah, and you do that, and then you have like a list of things that you need to accomplish. Well, if I want to get this done this quarter, I need to get these things done per week, and I can't do the stuff next week until I accomplish the stuff this week. So then it's very clear, like, well, I have to get these things done this week. Well, if I have all these things I need to get done this week, I got to break it down per day. Well, today I can do 2 of those things. Boom. Okay, well, I have 13 more. I've got 6 more days. What are we going to do? And I want to make sure that I'm allocating time for family. So maybe I'm only going to account for 6 days out of the week. But it's going to take time. It's going to take energy. It's going to take that free time that you have now. It's going to take that, because it's very difficult to change your life within the current construct of the life that you live now. You have to change. You have to structurally change things. And a lot of that will be around your free time, because that's leveraging your most valuable resource. So unless you have the ability to just drop what you're doing and to go full on into what it is that you want to be doing, you're going to have to make some adjustments, and there's going to be some struggles, right? There's going to be some growing pains, but there's very few people that made it to a level of success without putting in the work. And if you're sitting there at home right now and you're listening to this, you're probably one of those people. If you're not already well off by happenstance, then you're probably not going to end up being really well off by happenstance. If you're not really happy by happenstance, then you're probably not going to end up being happy by happenstance. Like you're going to have to make investments. You're going to have to really, grit down and just get after it. Like, you're going to have to use those times, even if it's you're throwing on a podcast that's about whatever topic it is that you're interested in getting better at and becoming a professional in. And you're just digesting that on your way to work, on your way back from work, dropping your kids off at the soccer game when you're at the soccer game, and then starting to look at setting money to the side so you can buy courses and you can learn more about this stuff. You want to learn from people that are actively in the field right now doing it. And the beautiful thing is there's so many people online that are providing these courses for all of these different things that you can buy so you can become an expert in these fields. You can learn from the people that are really out there doing it, and you can do it in a flexible schedule that's not rigid and isn't going to work like a university schedule to get a higher education. You're going to learn from these other people on a more flexible basis because you're an adult who has kids, who has priorities, and a job, and you gotta stay flexible. So use the resources, look into it, figure it out. But the first thing you gotta do is get clear. So that's your mission today. Get clear on what it is you want your life to look like in 5, 10, 15 years. So that when that version of you that gets out of prison, you can take them to the club. You can go put a bunch of girls or guys around them, and you can flood them with drinks. You can rent that fancy car for them to be able to drive around. You can do these things, but you gotta be clear, right? You have got to get clear on your goal and your mission and your purpose, right? Without those things, it is impossible to succeed. So let's start there. I love you guys. Thank you so much for coming back. It's so good to be back here behind the mic and here with you. I can't wait to see you guys again. Because I'm making up for lost time, I'm going to make another video tomorrow. So I will see you tomorrow for another episode on Real Resilience with Matt LaStallion.